Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
The views expressed by the host on this program documented to be almost always right 99.8% of the time. Greetings to you, music lovers, thrill seekers, and conversationalists all across the fruited plain. Great to have you here for the next 3 hours of broadcast excellence, hosted by me, your guiding light, Rush Limbaugh, the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. The telephone number, always 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushmo@eibnet.com. Did I not say yesterday everything is going to change, and I predicted the change was going to be dramatic? And it was going to take place simply because we have reality now to deal with. We have actual votes that have been cast. We have candidates who have finished in specific places in a certain order. And all of that took place yesterday and the day before doesn't count for anything now. It was all theory. It was all speculative. It was all poll-driven. Much of it wrong. It's astounding to me how dramatic and what a huge difference the entire landscape assumes and how it is presented. Look at how dramatically things change as we go from a narrative of theory and what turned out to be bad polling to the shocking and dramatic reality of reality. We have hard votes cast. We have real winners. We have presumed losers and presumed second-tier winners. We have all sorts of narratives dead, all sorts of themes dead, all previous prognostications, many of them now taken under advisement and being recast. Pretty much everything we were told to expect last night on the Republican side didn't happen. The polling data had Donald Trump winning in the vast majority of polls by anywhere from 4 points to 6, depending. And Rubio was barely going to remain viable, finishing a distant third. Ted Cruz and Trump were going to be battling it out. We had all kinds of theories to explain why that was going to happen. And, of course, you have to throw it all out now. And one of the reasons, folks, that I don't join the narratives pre-voting is because I don't know what's going to happen. All I know is, and what I sense is, that potentially momentous things are at play, and they really are. But I don't know, I didn't know before yesterday how things were going to turn out. I didn't have a particular feel for it. And this is why I never try to endeavor to explain with ontological certitude what I think is going to happen in wide open contests like this. For example, the Republican Party, and let me give you a little bit of news that I just was made aware of prior to the show beginning. It's a news story from thehill.com. Now think of what just happened last night. Let's put this in context. Evangelicals, social issues people, the very people the Republican Party wishes they could ditch, the very people Republican moderates and rhinos and establishment Republicans are embarrassed of, evangelicals, God-fearing people, pro-lifers, pro-constant old-fashioned cultural, sensible behavior modes. Those people were the margin of victory in a Republican primary, caucus, in the first state of the campaign season. Now, you would think that upon seeing this, that the Republican Party might think it worthwhile to conduct an outreach to this group of people. But they will not, because they have been doing their best to distance themselves from these people and to de-emphasize their importance and their role in the Republican Party. And yet they are the reason Ted Cruz was victorious last night. Now, there are many reasons why Trump did not win. We're going to get into all of those as the program unfolds. But look at this news story. It's from thehill.com. And rather than read this, let me tell you what it is. Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader. Mitch McConnell, leader of the Republicans in the Senate, has said he doesn't think it will make any sense to oppose any part of the Obama agenda this entire year, because to do so might threaten the Republican presidential campaign. So Mitch McConnell has just signaled to Barack Obama he's got a free road. He's got an open road and a clear road, whatever he wants to do. The Republicans in the Senate are not going to lift a finger to stop him, because Mitch McConnell thinks that that kind of opposition and that kind of criticism might harm the Republican presidential campaign, whoever ends up being the nominee. Meanwhile, that very Republican presidential campaign, if it has the slightest chance of winning, is going to be taking direct aim at Barack Obama and his party and Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders or whoever. The very nature of the campaign is going to be, and you watch, it has to be this if the Republicans are going to win. If the Republicans do not run against Obama, if they don't run against the last 7 years, if they do not run against Hillary Clinton, if they don't promise they're going to stop this stuff and reverse it, they're not going to win anyway. So the Republican nominee, most likely, is going to be running a campaign anti-Hillary Clinton, illustrating all the errors, the mistakes, the horrible things that have happened in this country the last 7 years. That will be the thrust of the Republican nominee's campaign for the White House in this year. And over in the Senate Majority Leader is saying he's not going to do that very thing because it might upset voters who would be inclined to vote Republican. But if the Senate starts trying to stop Obama, then those voters might get mad at the Republicans and vote for Hillary. It is the most insane thing I think I could have encountered today. And I'm wondering if whoever the establishment prefers in this, everybody says it's Rubio. And I'm going to tell you something, folks. I'm a lone wolf on this. But I know everybody's assuming that Marco Rubio is the chosen establishment candidate, and they're doing so on the basis that Rubio has his experience in the Gang of Eight and amnesty and so forth. But Marco Rubio, I really like. I like Ted Cruz. There are any number of people in this campaign, 2 or 3 people. If they win, I'd be happy. But it doesn't matter because the establishment does have their candidate. And it looks like it is going to be Rubio. And as such, Rubio is going to end up becoming an enemy of several Republican or many perhaps potential Republican voters. And I just remember the days that Marco Rubio was in the state of Florida, local politics, state politics, and then going national. And he was considered perhaps one of the greatest potential heirs to Ronald Reagan. And now he's being derided as a sellout member of the establishment. I thought his acceptance speech last night, not acceptance, his speech last night, he was the first to get out there. He hustled to get out there. As such, it made him look like the winner. He had energy. Well, I thought it was a great speech that Rubio gave last night. It was energetic. Not choosing sides on anything here, folks. Nothing's changed in that regard. Simple observations I share with you as the program unfolds. I just find it stunning. I wonder if whoever the establishment campaign, if Rubio had won, I wonder if McConnell would be saying what he said. Probably would. But you need to wake me up here. I mean, this makes no sense whatsoever. The very nature of the campaign is going to be exposing everything wrong that has been done by Barack Obama and will continue to be done by Hillary Clinton. Every aspect of our campaign is going to be focused on that and how we can reverse the direction, make this country better, improve people's lot in life via the economy, repealing Obamacare, you name it. And over in the Senate, we just got an announcement. They're not going to do that because they're afraid opposing Obama, the same old, will upset independents or whoever. And it might have a negative impact on the Republican presidential candidate. Just stunning. The argument is that the Republicans can't oppose Obama in the Senate during an election year because it might hurt him at the polls in November. I mean, it's inexplicable. Back to Iowa. So here we have the evangelicals, who the GOP would secretly like to get rid of and not be held prisoner by, if you will. It's the old social issues argument. They are the margin of victory. They are the reason Ted Cruz wins last night with a record Republican turnout. It's not a record turnout in Iowa. It is a record Republican turnout. Remember, we spoke about this yesterday, too, with that Des Moines Register poll, which was predicting various things because of a huge turnout. And people were saying the Des Moines Register poll was invalid and wrong because it was factoring in too large a turnout. It turned out to be right on the money in terms of forecasting turnout. 13 polls, ladies and gentlemen, had Donald Trump winning by 4 points. 13 different polls had Trump winning by 4. In the Real Clear Politics rolling average, Ted Cruz outperformed what Real Clear Politics polling averages said he would get by 5 points. Marco Rubio outperformed his Real Clear Politics average by 6 points. There was an exit poll question that was focused on quite a lot last night on television during the returns and the coverage, the aftermath. The exit question shares my values. Trump, 5%. Now, again, it's exit polling data, and we have evidence that many people play games and maybe even lie. In fact, I'll give you an example. They had entrance polls last night for the Iowa caucus. And the first wave of entrance polls came in around 6:30. I was watching Fox News. And Fox News, I forget who it was, looking at the entrance polls, and the entrance polls indicated Trump was going to win. It was a continuation of all the polling data in 13 polls that Trump was going to win. And they were the entrance polls said the same thing, and the people on Fox said, well, it looks like Trump's got this thing in the bag. Now, who would lie in an entrance poll? Wish I could remember who said it. Who would lie? An entrance makes no reason why anybody would. Well, obviously, the entrance polls were not right, and the 13 polls pre-election were not right either. Exit poll question shares my values. Trump at 5%. Cruz, 38% shares my values. Rubio, 21% shares my values. What is that a reference to, do you think? What is shares my values? What? No, it's not religious voters. This is what everybody wants you to think. Shares my values. This is a question of conservatism. This is asking people, does this candidate share my values? This is an ideological question. In my estimation, I think this indicates that 5% of the voters that went in there last night in caucus think Trump shares their values as a conservative. 38% think that of Cruz, 21% think that of Rubio. Now, if you add Cruz and Rubio, if you add their totals, you get 51% of the vote. Now, I do not know the degree of sophistication to which the caucus goers last night consider who's the establishment candidate and who's the outsider or whatever. But if you combine Rubio and Cruz, and if you just take them individually without attaching them to anything, you've got two conservative guys here. Rubio and Cruz are two conservative guys. That's 51% of the vote. Trump, 24% of the vote. If you want to, you can add Ben Carson, who's demonstrably conservative, and you're up to 60% of the vote in the Hawkeye Caucus was for conservatives. It works every time it's tried, is my point. Conservatism wins every time it's tried. When somebody tries to fake it, real conservatives are going to spot it, and it isn't going to fly. Not going to work. I saw another observation. You look at Cruz, you look at Rubio, you look at Carson. You have two Hispanics and an African American getting 60% of the caucus votes, Over on the Democrat side, two bedraggled, worn-out old white people were the choice. And we sit here, we continue to have to listen to all this garbage that the Republican Party is where you find a lack of diversity and closed-minded bigotry and all of that rot gut that has no basis in truth whatsoever. Some of the theories last night is to explain Trump's defeat. Well, he blew Iowans off by not going to the debate. I don't think that's what it is, folks. I don't think the debate, not going to debate, had anything to do with it. I don't think Iowans sit around, he dissed us. We wanted to hear what he had to say, and he refused to come tell us. They knew who Donald Trump was. Donald Trump's been on the media all over the place. It wasn't that. That's not what it was. Remind you of a couple things. The New York values business, here comes Cruz and describing Trump New York values. The media all thought that Trump's answer in a previous debate just destroyed Cruz in that question. I said on this program the next day, wrong, folks, you're dead wrong. With the conservative base in Iowa that I know that we're talking about, Cruz ended up winning that, not Trump. Trump won it in the Northeast. He won it in the drive-by media. He won it in the Northeast conservative media. He won it among people who live in New York, Boston, Washington, but he did not win that exchange in that debate in Iowa. And how about, I think, another mistake that Mr. Trump made, and we mentioned it when it happened. Oops. I just saw the clock. I will not lose my place. I have to take a commercial break. This is not done on purpose, folks. I did. And we find ourselves now in the midst of the Republican primary season. It's officially begun. There are hard results now. And much of what you were told yesterday, the day before that didn't happen, did it? And because it didn't happen, now the media is out taking what did happen last night, and they're back at it, making predictions of what it means going forward. And one of the things that I'm hearing is that Donald Trump is finished. Oh, yeah. You want to hear how that thinking goes? Trump was supposed to win. That's all he does. He talks about winning. He never loses. Everybody's going to get tired of winning. It's going to happen so much. It comes in and loses. The bloom's off the rose. The people of New Hampshire are going to say, we don't want to attach ourselves to a guy number 2. I don't care he's up 21, 24 points in New Hampshire. He's going to have a bunch of people abandon him. It's over for Donald Trump. That's in the New York media. That's on much of televised media. It's not over for Donald Trump any more than it was over for Ted Cruz or Marco Rubio going into yesterday. But yet, that's what you're going to hear. The bloom's off the rose. The Trump has been exposed as a fraud, blah, 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 blah. The polls showing Trump at 21, obviously they say, now we can't believe those. The polls had him winning Iowa. They weren't true. People are not being honest with the pollsters, blah, blah, blah. They hate Trump so much, they can't wait for him to lose and be humiliated and tossed out, so they're making it look like that's what last night means, and nobody knows that. I don't think Trump skipping the debate had a thing to do with what happened last night. This is a Republican primary. It's Iowa. Conservatives win in Iowa. It is going to be a conservative who gets the nomination in this party, or else the Democrats are going to win. If this party once again nominates another squash moderate, it's over. We haven't nominated a genuine conservative for the White House, for the presidency, of the Republican Party in years. And this time, we're going to do it. And Donald Trump, I don't know if you forgot, one thing that remembers is that he went out and, again, trying to criticize Cruz. Cruz is the front runner. Cruz is not the enemy. Hillary Clinton is the enemy. Ted Cruz is not a nasty guy. Ted Cruz is not a Canadian. Ted Cruz is none of that. He's not mean-spirited. Ted Cruz doesn't want anybody to die in the streets. Nobody's going to believe that. Especially when you offer that criticism sounding as though it could come from Bernie Sanders. In a Republican primary, you do not win if you're going to sound like a liberal Democrat criticizing Ted Cruz. And it wasn't just health care. How many of you remember? I pointed this out when it happened. Mr. Trump pointing out that you can't do anything if you can't make deals, can't cooperate. True, part of his criticism of Cruz, hated, nobody likes him. Trump said, I can do deals with Harry Reid and Pelosi. I know these people. I like these people. Schumer, I can do deals. No. We don't want to do any more deals with these people. We want to beat those people. There are many things that harm Mr. Trump, but not showing up at debates, not one of them. And we are back in the initial stages of analysis of what happened last night. That's right. I can't make the point enough. The difference in attitude people have, attitude, thoughts, feelings today versus yesterday at this time, a world apart. What happened yesterday, this time of day, what everybody was thinking was going to happen, what everybody thought it meant, looking forward to November, all blown up by what happened last night. Yesterday, this time of day, was nothing but speculation, forecasting, prediction, a bunch of people trying to make it sound like they knew what was going to happen. Last night, reality interceded, blew all of that up. And now the cycle is repeating again. Now we've got a hard result in Iowa, and here come the experts telling us what it all means and what down the road for New Hampshire and South Carolina, into Nevada, and in the Super Tuesday primaries, the SEC primary on March 1st. The whole process starting all over again. Like, yeah, Trump's finished. This is it. This is proving that Trump was never really as popular as he was. It's all been a bunch of hype and free media, but everybody's down to earth now. And then the second storyline is the real winner is Rubio. Oh, yeah, because Rubio, he did what was most unexpected. And that is finishing a strong third, only a percentage point behind Cruz. Look, in terms of delegates, we're talking an equal spread of delegates. Trump got 5. Cruz got 5. What'd Rubio get, 4? I mean, you look at the delegate count. The delegates are where convention winners are decided and so forth. Yeah, the horse race aspect of this is important. It is. But that's the aspect of this that people can't let go of. You had a bunch of people in the media hoping that Trump was a phony, hoping that Trump was all hype, hoping that this was just a bunch of BS, that he's going to implode, people said, starting back in June when he announced he's going to implode. He's going to implode. He never did implode. They're thinking last night was the implosion. They're hoping. Their fingers are crossed that last night was the implosion. When Trump announced on June 16th and said what he said about McCain and the Mexicans, here came the incoming media criticism. It was concentrated, it was nuclear, and it was incessant and never stopped. And it's starting up all over again. Trump is going to deal with a new round of incoming, all aimed at convincing people he has never been real. It's all been phony and hype and spin. Trump does not have a conventional political operation, and what we learned, this is spin. This is why I'm sharing with you what we've heard from the experts. What we learned last night is that retail politics is still retail politics. Trump hasn't overthrown anything. Trump hasn't upended anything. Trump hasn't changed anything. You still win in Iowa by going door to door, going to as many districts, as many counties, whatever as you can, shaking hands, kissing babies. You have to go in. You have to debate. You have to meet the people. Trump didn't do that. He didn't win. And the establishment types are breathing a huge sigh of relief because everybody that supports them in the drive-by media, even some in conservative media, are now happily and with a huge sigh of relief saying, oh, thank God, Donald Trump's not real. Donald Trump isn't changing anything. Oh, thank God, we still own the process. We're still in control of the process. That's what they think. And in their glee, they're forgetting to examine what really happened in Iowa last night. You see, they hate Ted Cruz more than they hate Trump. They despise Ted Cruz. And they're going to despise Cruz even more once they wake up from their stupor of drunkenness here, their happiness of what they think has happened to Trump, which hasn't yet. Evangelicals, the margin of victory, the group in the Republican Party, the Republican establishment would love to be able to get rid of, is the reason the candidate they really hate won. So now they're saying, well, you know, Iowa's its own place, and when we get into New Hampshire, there aren't any of those evangelicals, not nearly as many. We got more libertarians in New Hampshire. State's perfectly set up for, who are they saying? Bush. Yes, Jeb and Christie, and maybe even Rand Paul. Yes, this is the brilliant analysis that everybody watches television is getting today. And it's bad news for Cruz. Is finished. He doesn't have a prayer. Nowhere possible he's going to win. And Trump, well, yeah, he's leading big, but man, it wasn't real in Iowa, and it probably isn't real in New England. The establishment's out there going nuts, folks, thinking that they have made a giant recovery here. But in the end of the day, what we have Rubio, we have Ted Cruz, and I'm going to throw Ben Carson in there because I think this is a crucial point. We have two genuine disciples of Ronald Reagan in the top 3 places in Iowa. We have a very strong outsider in Donald Trump who is showing the way in determining or in illustrating how to oppose the establishment and what not to be afraid of. And then we've got Ben Carson. And I would have to say Ben Carson is a disciple of Ronald Reagan. When I listen to Ben Carson talk, I hear Reaganisms. I know I hear them when I listen to Cruz, and Cruz openly admits he's a Reaganite. Ditto with Marco Rubio. So 3 of the top 4 finishers last night are Reagan disciples, with a party that is urging, its establishment is urging that we get rid of the Reagan fetish. That we finally realize the era of Reagan is over. It isn't. It's the salvation. We have tried it the establishment's way. I don't know how many years, starting back in Bill Clinton's era, we have tried it with the Northeastern moderates. I mean, we nominate a nice guy, Mitt Romney. We nominate a guy who was the architect of Obamacare on the premise that we're going to repeal Obamacare. This is one of those things Saturday Night Live makes jokes about. %60 of the Republican vote in Iowa last night went for 2 Hispanics and an African American. 100% of the Democrat vote went for a couple of tired, old, decrepit white people. And I have to tell you, whether she knows it or not, it's over for Hillary Clinton. I don't know if that means she doesn't get the nomination or if she does and doesn't win the general. This woman last night on her stage was just a sight to behold. Parroting Bernie Sanders, calling herself the latest big new progressive, talking about the same things Bernie's talking about, because last night in Iowa was the shock and the scare of her life. It's 2008 all over again. This is not supposed to happen, Mrs. Clinton saying. I don't know if you've seen this in the television coverage of Mrs. Clinton's speech last night. She did not declare victory, by the way, and they're still saying in some places it's too close to call. How can that be? How can it still be too close to call? I mean, if it's still too close to call, it means they're playing games out there on the Democrat side. And, of course, you've heard about the fact that Hillary won 6 coin flips in a row. You know what the odds of that are? 1.7%. It doesn't happen. Anyway, television coverage of Mrs. Clinton's acceptance last night, and there's this guy that ends up being over her right shoulder as you're looking at the picture, and he's got 2 stickers on each cheek right below each eye, and he's making weird, odd faces. And it turns out this guy has become a hero of the internet today because people are replaying this and sending it, tweeting it, Facebooking it all over the place. It's a comedy piece. Some guy stands, Hillary's stem winder's serious and telling everybody what she's going to do and doing the Hillary screech, the voice that reminds you of your first 2 ex-wives. This guy's back there with these stickers on his face, laughing and making faces, totally distracting everybody. And then if you notice, Bill Clinton behind her. And that was, well, what's the word? I was going to say scary, but no, it was shocking the way Bill Clinton looked last night. It's clearly not the 1990s. And there aren't a bunch of bikini-clad babes running around. Well, there might still be that. With Bill Clinton, you never know. Anyway, I have just a little more here of analysis. And heading into New Hampshire now as people start predicting, prognosticating, analyzing, and so forth. And actually, there's much more to go here. I'm going to be bouncing off people on the phones and some of the audio sound bites that we have from candidates and media types. Hopefully, I get a new beta today to fix my battery life problem, but my fingers are not crossed on that. But I'm totally focused here, folks. Don't sweat it. The week ahead in New Hampshire, looking at the polls, trying to analyze what happened in Iowa poll-wise versus what's said in New Hampshire to happen versus what might happen. It's fascinating to listen to people tear it all down and break it apart, try to analyze it and tell you what it means. And there are a lot of people who think they have all the answers on this stuff, and I think a lot of them are all wet as I listen to them, not necessary to mention names. But we'll get to the rest of this as the program continues and unfolds before your very eyes and ears. So hang in there and be tough. Your turn's coming up soon. Mr. Snerdley, have him stand by on the phones. I'm going to go to the phones here sooner than I thought. There's one other major thing that happened last night, which nobody in the establishment is going to want to admit to, nor are they going to talk about it. And that is bye-bye ethanol. Sayonara ethanol. You don't think so, Snerdley? Okay, it might be. Okay, well, it's an anomaly for one campaign, but look what happened. You had the governor urging everybody in the state not to vote for Ted Cruz because Cruz wants to end the ethanol subsidy. What happened? Cruz wins. Everybody else came out for the ethanol standard, including Trump, which that was another puzzling thing to me, given what Trump is trying to do, positioning himself. And look at what ended up happening. I mean, this is huge. This is not people in Washington defeating ethanol. This is Iowans in a record Republican turnout, choosing a guy who made a singular major point out of ending the ethanol subsidy. In terms of conservative, this is the kind of thing the establishment won't go anywhere near. Reducing government, cutting down subsidies, crony capitalism, whatever you want to call this, crony socialism. Nobody would touch it. Cruz was the only one that had the guts to touch it, and he wins. It is huge, I think. Because what it is instructive. It means you can go after these things and not only survive it and live another day, you can win. You can win attacking big government socialism. You can win attacking, if you do it the right way. If you do it in the way Cruz did, that explains how this is actually going to expand freedom and economic opportunity and lower prices, coupled with all this nonsense about global. You see the latest poll on global, 91% of American people don't believe it. It came out yesterday during the program, and I, of course, made an executive decision. It wasn't really big enough news to interrupt what we were talking about yesterday. But 91%, latest poll. Global warming, global schwarming. Just a couple days after, 3 days after Al Gore's 10-year, we're all dead clock expires, and we're still alive, and there's still no flooding, and sea levels are still where they're supposed to be. Here's Joe in Orangeburg, New York, as we head to the phones. Great to have you, sir. Welcome.
Hey, Mega Dittos, Rush. I'm really happy to be on your show. I love your show. I listen to you every single day.
Thank you, sir, very much. I appreciate that. That's a very nice suck-up.
I was calling because I never disagree with you, and I technically don't disagree with you, but I think what you said earlier about why you think Trump may have lost was because of his, indications where he was showing signs where he was going to make deals, with Pelosi and the liberal establishment. I agree with that. I do think that affected him as far as, his numbers last night. But I think as far as the debate, I don't think it's because he didn't go to the debate. I think it's because of why he didn't go to the debate. The fact that he was afraid, in most perceived minds, I think, out there are perceiving that he was afraid to go to the debate. or he was upset about it, afraid to face the fire. And I think,
let me ask you
in my mind, personally, I think that's what bothered me the most, actually.
Okay, Joe, are you a Trumpster or not? No, there's no.
I am not. I'm a Cruz supporter.
Okay.
I'm definitely going for Cruz.
Okay, just wanted to get that. I mean, there's no wrong answer here. I'm not. It's nothing accusatory. So you think that not doing the debate did hurt Trump, but because people thought that it looked like he was afraid of Megyn Kelly?
I think that's the perception people have, and the reason why I say that is because that's the thing that you heard most in the news. You didn't hear about the other things.
Now, wait, you got to tell me from who? You're in Orangeburg, New York. Where are you hearing people in Iowa say they thought that made Trump look like he was afraid of Megyn Kelly?
I don't know. I just feel that if I was in Iowa and I saw him bitch on the debate because he was afraid of Megyn Kelly and because he was afraid of some article that guy wrote with, Fox, on Fox. It would upset me. It would definitely affect my decision if I was on the borderline with choosing either.
Let me give you an alternative theory.
I think.
You're anecdotally speaking. You have your theory, and you think a lot of people agree with it if you could ask them. So let me run another theory by you.
Huh?
Let's say that Trump and his people decided they're 4 points up in the polls. They're winning big crowds. Right. You know what was going on. What if they said, you know what? There's nothing we can gain showing up here tonight. But if we don't, it's going to make Cruz get the center podium, and Cruz is going to be the target. Everybody there is going to hit Cruz, not me. Thereby, I need to take Cruz out, so let's make Cruz the focal point. The way to do that's for me not to show up. Does that make any sense? I'm just an alternative theory.
It does make sense, but I think it was a calculated mistake on his part by doing that. Because if he was there, people love, people who are Trump supporters love hearing him talk, love hearing him say what he has to say, because he's outspoken and he, says things off the cuff a lot. And I think people missed that and wanted to see that for the last day. I mean, I'm just speaking from my own heart as far as like how I felt about it. I mean, I was, like I said, I'm voting for Cruz myself. But
right, so you should have been happy that he didn't show up.
Yeah, well, yeah, I am. I was. I actually was. And I
you were?
I've been listening to your show, and I've been saying to myself, it's going to hurt him. I think it's really going to hurt him. I think it's going to be the big thing.
I'm out of time here. I don't mean to be rude, but the clock is the clock. So there it is. Trump didn't show. People thought it made him look like he was afraid of Megyn Kelly or anybody else who was going to attack him that night, and he just didn't want to be. And that's. I don't think that's what it was, but feel free, folks. We got 2 hours left here to discuss that and whatever else. I don't know. I just have a tough time thinking Trump's afraid. There are plenty of other times in his campaign he could have bumped out of things because he was afraid. If he was afraid, there are legitimate things to fear out there, I guess. I think other things were at work. You have to be a narcissist. Back in a second here. Okay. I may have overstated it. Maybe ethanol's not dead. I'm just telling you what happened last night and yesterday in Iowa. Nobody's ever done this. Nobody has gone into Iowa and talked about ending the ethanol subsidy and lived the next political day to talk about it. And Cruz did. That's all I'm saying. The important thing is what has been demonstrated to be possible. This is the great thing about this. All of these things everybody says you can't do. Rush, come on. We're never really going to be able to talk about small government. Too many people get benefits from the government. Too many people live off of it. You're never going to give it up. Even many in the Republican establishment now, a lot of the so-called neocons for years have been saying, we've lost the argument over small government, Limbaugh. You better realize it. What the people want, they tell me, these establishment types, they want a smart, energetic, engaged executive. That's how they talk. Meaning president. Administering and directing a large government in a very, very intelligent, smart way. And I've always reacted to this. Well, then don't call yourself conservative. That's the conservatives don't believe in acknowledging the existence of big government as a new normal, and that's it. And Cruz goes in there, has the governor of Iowa running around telling everybody to vote against him, and he wins, and he's the only candidate in the state who went out and proposed the end of the ethanol subsidy and wins the thing. That nobody has ever done that before. Now, I know it was an overstatement to say ethanol's dead. It's a demonstration of what's possible here. And that, if I may circle back, to me has always been the value of Trump, is to demonstrate that the conventional wisdom of how we have to go about attacking the Democrats or not attacking them and not being critical. Trump has blown that to smithereens in a whole host of ways. And I've got more thoughts on that in just a second. Greetings and welcome back, by the way. Rush Limbaugh here at the EIB Network. And telephone number is 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. And if you want to send an email, I check them. I don't read them verbatim. I summarize them. But I do check them now and then. It's lrushmo@eibnet.com. Let's look at New Hampshire. New Hampshire's next. Iowa is in everybody's rearview mirror. No offense, Iowa. New Hampshire is next 1 week from today. The New Hampshire primary, 1 week from today. The Real Clear Politics rolling average there has Trump way out in front of Cruz and Kasich. Those are the closest competitors in New Hampshire by nearly 22 points. The Real Clear Politics rolling average in Iowa had Trump up 4. There were 13 polls that had Trump winning yesterday by 4. And they all missed it. Now, the Real Clear Politics is a website, and they average a bunch of major polls. And that average now has Cruz and Kasich trailing Trump by 22 points. Trump's lead, aside from a couple of outliers, Trump's lead in New Hampshire has not been in single digits since October. Stated another way, Trump has had a double-digit lead in the rolling average of polls in New Hampshire since October. So, what's going to happen? The 4-point lead that Trump had ended up being a 3-point defeat, right? So you call it swing of 7. Good way for everybody looking at this. They had him winning by 4. He loses by 3. So it's a swing of 7. So let's say, okay, he's at 22, a 22-point lead. Does that make it 15 or 16 in reality? Well, I don't know. Some people are going to try to analyze it this way. But is Trump going to blow? Can what happened in Iowa result in Trump blowing a 22-point lead? Can a 22-point lead become a 1, 2, or 3-point loss next to, you say not very likely. Well, I'm here to tell you that as we sit here, do not be shocked and surprised if later in the week you're watching TV, don't care which network, a bunch of mainstream drive-by analysts tell you that it's going to happen. The anti-Trump fervor, the hatred, the dislike, however you want to describe it, is so profound. And this is not news to you, but it's so profound, so deep in the Republican establishment. Don't forget, these people have believed, hoped, dreamed, whatever, Trump was going to implode back in August. And then he was going to implode at the end of August. He's going to implode Labor Day. He was going to implode on the opening day of the NFL. He's going to implode on September 30th. He's going to implode on Halloween. And he didn't implode, didn't do anything, just grew and grew and grew. They've been hoping and praying. They've been at their wits' end. They've been, what can we do? All these people have hung in this race with the belief that Trump's going to blow this somehow, or that people are going to wake up and realize that Trump's not who he says he is, and they're going to abandon him. Something's going to happen. Well, I'm here to tell you that people are going to take this result last night and say that's what it means. They are going to say something along the lines of this. Hey, look, Trump was all hype from the get-go. Trump is nothing but win, win, win. Going to win so much, you're going to get tired of winning. You're going to ask me to lose some, and I'm going to say, I don't know how to lose. I'm Donald Trump. Win, 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 win. Okay. Pedal to the metal. Rubber hits the road. Didn't win. they're going to say that lets all the air out of the balloon, and it's going to come plunging back down to earth. And people in New Hampshire, everybody wants to be with the winner. The people who are giving Trump this 22-point lead are going to look what happened in Iowa. This guy's a phony. That wasn't, oh, my God, I can't hang around with a loser. And they're going to leave Trump. This is what? It's already being stated by some people out there. I can't remember the names. I was up late last night watching as much of the stuff as I could because I knew that this result last night was going to create its own new set of narratives that it consists of things nobody knows what they're talking about, just like we had to deal with prior to yesterday. So there's that theory. The other theory is that Trump can't handle personal rejection and he's going to blow it. He's going to go out there and he's going to start insulting people that he thinks are responsible for his loss, and he's going to embarrass himself. There's any number of scenarios where Trump now doesn't win a single primary, Mr. Snerdley. And if you look in the right places on the web and you search a lot, you'll find it already. And there's all kinds of gloating out there. Now, the candidates are not gloating. Like Cruz isn't gloating. And Rubio isn't gloating. No, it's the establishment types. You might have some of the Jeb consultants out there gloating. I think they've got a new breath of life. What did I see? Jeb spent $25,000 a vote. Is that right? That's off the top of my head. I could be wrong about it. Maybe it's $2,400 a vote. I forget which. Whatever. So let's stay in New Hampshire for just a second here, folks. Trump's double-digit lead, 22 points over Cruz and Kasich. Rubio is not in the top three in New Hampshire. If there is a commensurate fade for Trump in New Hampshire, like there was in Iowa, it might make that 22, 23-point lead a 15 or 16-point lead. I mean, if things are commensurate, which they probably won't be. I mean, just because something happened in Iowa does not mean the identical thing is going to happen in New Hampshire. If it did, it would mean Cruz would win. And don't forget, there's all kinds of other things. You could say, well, hey, Reagan didn't win Iowa, went on to win 2 landslides. The retort people have, Cruz didn't, or Trump isn't a Reagan. But it still happened. Reagan, he didn't do the last debate. He didn't do a debate in Iowa either, for whatever reasons. Went on to lose Iowa, won New Hampshire, ran table practically, or not ran, but won the nomination and won the presidency in a landslide. Well, people always find points of time in history where they think are indicators of the president. So New Hampshire, like Snerdley just said, how in the world do you lose a 22-point lead? You can't. Not in a week. You can't lose a 22-point lead. The only way, Mr. Snerdley, you can lose a 22-point lead in a week is if you've never really had it. And that is what the anti-Trump people are counting on. That the polling data on Trump is like everything else with Trump in their minds, hype and spin, not real. Many people hoping that. Now, after New Hampshire comes South Carolina. And as you go further, Trump's leads get bigger. In South Carolina, his lead is almost as big as it is in New Hampshire. So now, what would be the best thing to happen in your mind? Should some of these guys that we know aren't going anywhere get out? Should Christie get out? Should Kasich get out? Should Jeb Bush get out? I was going to say Rand Paul, but Rand Paul might show halfway decent in New Hampshire. Should they get out? Should their voters be free to coalesce around somebody else? Because these people divvying up the vote this way is not helpful. It's not helping answer any questions. It's not furthering the decision. Other people want them to stay in because the more establishment people that are in there to split the establishment support this time around is what they want. People are sick and tired of 10,000 conservatives in the race with one moderate rhino. And the 10,000 conservatives split the conservative vote and end up losing to the one rhino. Well, now it's possible that you could have of a majority of people still in the race be rhino moderates who will split their money and support, water it down, thereby focusing more votes and support for the conservative candidates in the race. So theories can go either way on what do you think ought to happen with people in the race. I don't know if you're going to have a lot of mass exodus prior to New Hampshire because so many people like Christie, Kasich, Rand Paul, any number. New Hampshire was their firewall. New Hampshire was where they were going to make their mark. They knew they were never going to do anything in Iowa. Which, by the way, is what Trump is saying. Hey, I wasn't even supposed to go. My advisors, my sport, but don't go to Iowa. Iowa's just not your place. He said, I got to go. I got to go to Iowa. I love people. Iowa love people. People in Iowa love me. I got to go. I got to go. No, Mr. Trump, it's not your place. Sacrifice it. Spend your time and money elsewhere. Don't go to Iowa. But I had to go to Iowa. So he's trying to construct the scenario that he spend as little time there as any candidates, hardly any money, and still finish second. Major achievement. Who else could have done what I did? I go into a place that I had no business being. Nobody told me to go to Iowa. I insisted going to Iowa because I love the people of Iowa, but everybody with a smart said, don't go, don't go. So I didn't spend much time there. I didn't spend a lot of, and I still finished in second place. As far as I'm concerned, it's a grand slam victory. That's how Trump's playing it. So it's fascinating stuff to watch here, folks. And Huckabee's gotten out, but yeah, Huckabee's gotten out. True. I was going to say something in politics. He wasn't in it? Okay. Huckabee wasn't in it. Fine, we'll leave that as it is. He's. What you mean is he was never going to be a contender. How do you explain Santorum winning 4 years ago and getting whatever he got last? How do you explain that? Right. Well, who worked the state? Right, but what happened to him this time? If he worked the state 4 years ago, okay, so Cruz did the full Grassley, came in and worked. All right, see, that's why you think Santorum went from winning it to last place. That's not, electability. There's a lot of factors in it. But at the top, you've got to throw in what Cruz did. Cruz had the organization. This is why even the establishment types who hate Cruz and hate Trump, they're all hailing Cruz's victory because of the way he did it, because what Cruz's victory represents to them is the survivability of politics as a business as they've always known it. What really scared them about Trump was that Trump was going to totally change the way politics is done, the way candidates win. The establishment guys, oh, no, we can't have that. They want it to be the same way it's always been, retail. You got to go in there. You got to shake hands, kiss babies. You got to have a ground game. You got to have hundreds of volunteers making phone calls, getting out the vote, got to do all that. They were scared to death Trump was going to win without any organization of any kind like that. Cruz wins with the best organization like that of anybody in the state, and the establishment, even though they hate him, giant sighs of relief because they think Cruz's victory affirms their way of doing business. And we will be back. Do not go away. Now, one more possibility here, folks, about Iowa and the polling data. What if the polls were right? What if Trump did have... Remember, the last poll was taken like 5 days before. What if the last poll was right? What if at the time the poll was taken, Trump was going to win by 4 points? And then Trump went on the Sunday shows. And that's when he started talking what he was saying about health care. And Cruz wanting people to die in the streets now. We got to save people, help people. Can't let them die in the streets like Cruz wants. Like, he's got a big heart and so forth. Cruz doesn't. It starts sounding just like Obama talking about health care. And what if they had taken a poll after the Sunday shows? Wonder what that poll would have shown. And then this whole business with in the endorsement from Bob Vander Plaats back on December 10th, president of the Family Leader, popular evangelical leader in Iowa. He endorsed Huckabee. He endorsed Santorum in the previous caucuses, and they both won. Back in late January, Trump skewered Vanderplatz on Twitter, calling him a phony and a bad guy because he endorsed Cruz. These are things that Iowans notice. And I think there was a cumulative effect of things that Iowans noticed. I really don't think it has much to do with the debate at all. Back to the phone, Cindy in Asheville, North Carolina. Welcome. Great to have you on the program. Hi.
Hey, Russ. How you doing?
I'm just fine. I've been to Asheville before. I just want you to know that.
I'm sorry?
I've been to Asheville before.
Oh, poor you. It's a horrible place. It's very liberal.
I know it is. I was just in there for a day.
I don't live in Asheville. I actually live in an area called Spring Creek. But let's get to the point. I love you. I have listened to you, and I have 34 years ago, I met Ronald Reagan, and I became a Republican. And that was in Bowling Green, Kentucky. And I had a business in Bowling Green, Kentucky. I played you. I was one of the first rush rooms back then, years ago.
Whoa.
And I love you. And I do not agree with you now. I am a Southern girl, and I will tell you, Trump did not attack Cruz enough, as far as I'm concerned. I think, and I'm going to tell you this, somebody called yesterday, and they said they would never vote for Donald Trump. I will never vote for Ted Cruz. You can't afford to lose me. I am the voter that this party does not need to lose. Donald Trump has gave me the energy and the heart to go on in this party when everyone else left it. I love him. I love him. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud of being a listener of yours for so many years, just like I'm proud of being a voter for Donald Trump. But I think Ted Cruz, he's creepy. The man is creepy. I mean, I don't need a guy that's going to beat a Jesus fish to get my vote.
What, you don't need a guy that's going to beat a Jesus fish?
Yes, or carry a cross on his back. I don't need that to vote for Donald Trump. Donald Trump did not pander to the people of Iowa. I mean, I think he's the first guy I ever saw in Iowa that didn't wear a pair of blue jeans. I mean, he didn't.
I don't either.
Well, I mean, I love Donald Trump. But, with Ted Cruz for 15 months has been running for the president. And, I mean, I look at Ted Cruz, and, I mean, that mailer he put out, that was like Heinrich Himmler. I mean, that mailer...
Wait, look, hold it. Time is dwindling here, and I need to ask you some questions, Cindy. You want Trump to win, right?
Oh, yes, I love him. I will vote only for Trump.
Wait a minute. You've got to understand that there are a lot of, as yesterday showed, there are a lot of Republicans, Reaganites like you, who like Cruz. If you're going to... I don't care if you...
Only Trump.
Cindy, hang on.
Okay.
I hold you through the break here.
Okay.
But you got to understand, a conversation is two people talking. Okay? Okay, back for another stab at it here with Cindy in Asheville, North Carolina. I just want to run a couple of ideas by you here.
Okay.
I know you don't. You've said you don't like Cruz because you think you've got
creepy.
It's a revival hour when you watch him.
Yes.
Okay, I got that. Now, you want Trump to win.
Yes.
You got to realize that Trump is competing in an arena of majority conservatives who make up the Republican base, like you, Reagan-inspired type conservatives.
Right.
Now, it's understood by everybody in a primary that candidates are going to go after everybody. There's a way you do it, though. I think Mr. Trump's mistake in going after Cruz, not that he did it, but it's not going to be helpful to go after fellow Republicans in the same way liberal Democrats or establishment Republicans go after them when this is a campaign that's anti-establishment from top to bottom. So
I agree with that, but I think he needs to go back, Mr. Trump does, and look at the 15 months. I think you need to do the timeline. I think he needs to attack Cruz, and I think you need to attack. I mean, he's coming down here to the South. If
on what? Look,
it's not
going to help to say that Cruz is Canadian. It's not going to help to say that Cruz doesn't have a big. But that was the nature of the attack.
Well, I think that he needs to attack him on the fact, and this bothers people. It bothers people the way Mr. Cruz has ran his election. It bothered me last night with the fact with Mr. Carson, how they told people that Mr. Carson was out. He wasn't run. I mean, that's dirty. Now, that's what liberals do, Rush.
Yeah, I saw that.
Mr. Trump did not attack enough. He did not, and he didn't pander to the Iowans. He did not pander to them, and you know that.
All right.
You wouldn't have done it.
Okay,
either.
so there we have it. There, put it out there, Cindy. We'll have people talk about it. You think Trump wimped out when it comes to criticizing Cruz. He didn't hit him hard enough. And obviously, Cindy thinks Cruz got away with too much revivalism. There was too much Christianity going on out there, and Trump should have hit that. That's not what she's saying? Well, that's what, look, non-Christians think that Christians come off as creepy. Or people who don't wear it on their sleeves think that those who do are creepy. Yeah, the fish comment and the cross on the back and what have you comment that she made. My only point is, I know these guys are going to go after each other. It's the name of the game. The Democrats do the same thing in their primaries, but they have unique ways of doing it. I just think that if you're going to go after Cruz, it isn't going to help you to try to convince people that he's not qualified because he's Canadian, even if you're trying to be funny with it, and then say that he wants is comfortable, okay with people dying in the street because they don't have health care. Those are things that raise red flags for people who are supporting Trump, who think he's an outsider running against the establishment. And when he ends up sounding like a member of the establishment, that's all I'm saying. When he ends up sounding like a member of the establishment, some people in his group are going to have red flags raised. There's another criticism of Trump going on out there, or not criticism per se, pardon the snibbles, is an observation. A lot of people believe that what Trump is doing is bringing a bunch of new people into the political process. And I have never thought that's what's happening here. But a lot of others do. I mean, people friendly to this program. This is not an argument among people who I don't think get it. I mean, there's legitimate points of view on a lot of people out there who are friends of this program. Some of them think that part of the Trump phenomenon, and the establishment was worried about this. They were worried that what Trump was doing was revolutionary in so many ways that they couldn't control it. One of those ways was he was energizing people that had not been in politics, sort of like a miniature Tea Party all over again. That people that hadn't been in politics were all of a sudden being brought into it. And they were rabid. Oh, my God, you couldn't stop them no matter what you did and no matter what Trump said and no matter what anybody else said. They were going to love Trump. They were going to vote Trump. But they were new to the process. So went the theory. And I don't think that's at all what has been going on. In fact, I never even considered that. What I thought was happening was that, things don't happen in a vacuum. You've got to put things in the context. The context here is that for any number of years, specifically 7, which are at the forefront of people's minds right now, for 7 years, the Republican Party, which has been given 2 landslide wins in midterm elections in 2010 and 2014, has been doing nothing. They have not been stopping. They've been not even trying to stop. They haven't been opposing Barack Obama. In fact, it's worse. In many instances, they have been helping. They have been agreeing. They have been facilitating what Obama wants to do under whatever stupid reasoning they came up with. And you've heard it all. Well, we can't be seen criticizing the first African-American president. We consider us racist. We can't be seen to criticize Obama. The independents don't like that. The independents, they want to see us get along. They want to see cooperation. They want to see bipartisanship. They want to see Washington work. We can't do that if we criticize Obama. Whatever reason, they weren't stopping Obama, criticizing. They were making no effort, despite promising they would during campaigns. Well, here comes Trump. And I think what Trump did was energize a bunch of people I call the frustrated, capital T, capital F. the frustrated who have been dying to express their outrage at practically everything. Their outrage at Obama, their outrage at the Democrats, their outrage at Washington, their anger at the Republican establishment for not stopping it. No Republicans have been doing this other than Cruz. And to a certain extent, Rubio. The rest of the Republican field has been one version of Rhino moderate after another. There have been occasional hits on Hillary Clinton during debates, but during the real world of day-to-day life, no Republican was stepping up to stop any of this stuff, particularly in Washington. Outside of Ted Cruz, who was openly standing up and opposing his own establishment on the floor of the Senate. And in the midst of all this, Trump announces. So I thought what was happening was that people already engaged, already ticked off beyond anybody's ability to comprehend it, finally found a vessel for their rage and anger and actually liked what they were hearing. And they wanted Trump to succeed and still do. They want Trump to go, but now a couple or three things have been said that are causing some of those people to be a little concerned about Trump and what his ultimate politics are. I mean, I don't think you can conclude anything else watching Trump talk about health care and the way it was incorrect, but it was easily said to be in support of single payer. He didn't say he supported single payer, but he got close enough to it that critics could make it look like he said it. But the point is this, folks. And I think this is something that the advisors in the Trump campaign might want to consider. The anger was already there before Mr. Trump announced. The anger, the outrage, at all factors. The Democrats, Obama, the Republican establishment, the Washington establishment, the Washington cartel, whatever you might call it, standard, ordinary, everyday politics as usual, people were already angry. This is what the GOP establishment has never understood. If they have understood it, they have not taken it seriously, and they've mocked it and laughed at it and chalked it up just a bunch of Tea Party kooks. But the anger, the opposition, the frustration was real. And it's been out there for 7 years. It's been simmering. It's been effervescing for 7 years, and it has not had any avenue or opportunity for expression other than posting comments on blogs or calling or listening to radio talk shows. But within the political arena, there hasn't been anywhere to go because nobody has been reflecting that anger outside of Ted Cruz. I mean, Scott Walker did. Some of them did, but it's very, very few. And Trump comes along and he is not at all thought to be attached in any way to the place and the system and the structure that everybody's already angry about. So he's been great at exploiting or taking advantage of that anger. But if you look, there was another quite telling thing. And I fully expect Mr. Snerdley, who is in a disagreeable frame of mind today, to continue to disagree with me. But look at the Fox debate, what Trump didn't show. What was the conventional wisdom? The ratings were going to plummet, right? I mean, even the Fox people thought so. And they still got 13 million people. Now, it wasn't the 25 and then the 24, but it wasn't 3 or 4 million either. 13 million people still tuned in to watch that debate because they're ticked off. So the reasons for Trump's success are still there to be embraced and incorporated if others want to try to grab onto it. I don't think, and this is not by any means a criticism of Mr. Trump, I don't think anybody could have gone from zero to the phenomenal lead he did if the anger wasn't already there. So if there are any false impressions that the establishment people have been cowering in fear have been operating under, it's that Trump has brought in a whole bunch of new people. I don't think that's the case here. Now, in Iowa, there was a record Republican turnout, and there was as it turned out, a decent amount of new registration. But Trump didn't win there. So the point is that there is anger and energy throughout the Republican side. It exists whether somebody takes advantage of it or exploits it or not. This has been the point all along that the establishment has not got. And if they do get it, they lampoon it. Don't take it seriously or chalk it up to conspiratorial fruitcakes or what have you. And they're going to make this, if the way I see them analyzing what happened to Trump yesterday, they're making the mistake of falling back into their security zone where they think, this Trump stuff's just been an anomaly. We're still running the show here. It's still our game, and we can take Cruz out anytime we want. Don't discount that as something being plotted in the deep, dark crevices of the Republican underground, wherever these guys meet. I got to take a brief time out. We'll be back. We got much more straight ahead, folks. Don't go away. Okay, we are back. Great to have you here, Rush Limbaugh, with talent on loan from God. And here's Dan in Warrenton, Oregon. Great to have you, sir. Hi.
Good morning, dittos from Oregon, Rush.
Thank you very much. Great to have you here, sir.
Yeah, I'd like to bring up a point, and if there's a chance, the second one later. I am a real Trump follower, and I noticed one of his very latest tweets is that he doesn't feel people are really appreciating the fact that he's self-funding, and I do agree with that. I don't believe people can even comprehend what that really entails as far as cost, including running that plane around all over the place. I used to work on 757s myself.
Yeah. Yeah, he's leased the plane back to the campaign.
And
which is fine.
What I did was I immediately sent a tiny little contribution. I believe that
you did.
It's a good thing to do.
Okay. Dan, thank you. I appreciate the call. I really do. Here's the tweet. Trump was tweetless for 13 hours last night, and then he tweeted up a storm. And the tweet that old Dan here is talking about is this: I don't believe I have been given any credit by the voters for self-funding my campaign. The only one. I'll keep doing it, but not worth it. Followed by an exclamation point. Not worth it. Okay. What do you not worth it? I'm going to keep doing it. Not worth it. Interesting. I don't know, folks. And the next tweet after that said, I don't believe I've been given any credit by the voters for self-funding my campaign. The only one. I'll keep doing it, but not worth it. The next tweet was, I'll be talking about my wonderful experience in Iowa and the simultaneous unfair treatment by the media later in New Hampshire. Big crowd. Next tweet, the media has not covered my long-shot great finish in Iowa fairly. Brought in record voters, got second highest vote total in history. Next tweet, because I was told I could not do well in Iowa, I spent very little there. A fraction of Cruz and Rubio. Came in a strong second. Great honor. Next tweet, my experience in Iowa was a great one. I started out with all the experts saying I couldn't do well there and ended up in second place. Nice. The first tweet, Warrenton, or Dan in Warrenton, Oregon, is sending a little money here because Trump tweeted, "I don't believe I've been given any credit by the voters for self-funding my campaign. I'm the only one. I'll keep doing it, but not worth it." Well, people do talk about the need to reform campaigns, all the money being spent, donations, campaign finance reform, and he is spending his own money. It's the not worth it. I'm tossing around here in my deep, dark crevices of my cranial cavity here, trying to figure that out. No, I know what he's saying. He's saying he thought that it would be a big plus that he was funding his own campaign. And the media hasn't given him any credit like he thinks they would give other people credit if they were doing it. So it hasn't been worth it, but he's going to keep doing it because it's the right thing to do. That's how I interpret it, okay? Now back off, Dawn. And welcome back to the fastest 3 hours in media. You are tuned to the most listened to radio talk show in America. This is where people come when they want to find out what really something means. When they really want to know what it all adds up to, this is where they come. And we are shining today. Great to have you here. The telephone number, if you want to be on the program, is 800-282-2882, and the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. Some emailers. You haven't talked about the Democrat side. Yes, I have. We've talked about it. I'll repeat myself. It's over for Mrs. Clinton. She just doesn't know it yet. And I don't know when that's going to manifest itself. But what a pathetic. Now, I know the Democrats are a bunch of socialists and radicals. If you look at Iowa, you look at the breakdown of the Democrat identity in Iowa. Folks, it is radical socialist. The Democrat, there is no moderate, centrist, whatever Democrat Party anymore. They have all gone, they're left-wing, so far left radicals. Most people would not believe you. Most people who are not Democrats wouldn't understand it, wouldn't accept it. It's kind of happened in a stealthful way, really, but they are far gone. And Mrs. Clinton, she's just, something's not right with all this, and this is independent of the emails, independent of all the outside things. There's just something not right here. And there's something not right with Bernie Sanders. All this is I think the Democrats down deep are scared to death. In fact, I think the Democrats, if you want to know that, I think they're already planning on, let me put it this way. They're already structuring a battle plan for if they lose and how to gum up the works for whoever the next president is for the next 4 years. I think they're focusing on that as much as they are anticipating another victory and continuing the great Obama agenda. Clearly that's happening too. This was pathetic last night. Both these people, if you ask me, just listening to them, Mrs. Clinton, that whole crowd, she doesn't draw a crowd anymore. She's got no base. She's screeching out there. She just, you know what Hillary Clinton is? She's a classic illustration of somebody who thinks it's automatically hers because that's what she's been led to believe and doesn't really know how to compete for it. Now, if you look at Hillary Clinton's past as a political manager for all of the Clinton scandals, it's not glowing. It's not. And I realize she's got a built-in number of electoral votes because there's a giant D by her name. I'm not diminishing that. Don't misunderstand. I just continuing my posture here that she's nothing to fear, nothing to be afraid of, nothing great, nothing unstoppable. And I'm not making the mistake of taking her or Crazy Bernie lightly. I'm honestly assessing them. Anyway, it's great to have you back. What was I going to got a couple of Cruz sound bites I want to get into here, and another point that I want to emphasize. At least sound bites will help me transition to it. This is Cruz in New Hampshire, talking about Ronald Reagan. I think this is huge. I think the outcome last night in Iowa and who won and how and what it all means is really important to note. First, the two sound bites from Ted Cruz, already back in New Hampshire on the campaign trail for the primary there 1 week from today.
When was the last time we broke the Washington cartel? 1980. 36 years ago, and I'll tell you, the Granite State played a critical role in making that happen. You know, back in 1980, all the media said, this guy Reagan, he's a crazy right-wing kook, he's too extreme, and by the way, he's really down in the polls. That's what the media said over and over again.
Yeah, they did. That was Reagan. If people experienced that Reagan was a two-landslide victory president, and the memories of Reagan are of a dominant and adored, respected president. But in the campaign of 1976 and campaign of 1980, it was down and dirty, and the Republican establishment was anti-Reagan at every turn, and the media was. And Reagan was every bit as despised by the media as George W. Bush has been despised by the media, albeit for different reasons. But the point is, it wasn't a cakewalk. Even though Reagan captivated a majority of the American people, he was loved and adored, supported, landslide wins. It did not convert the media. It did not change the way the media reported. In fact, it angered them even more that they had been rebuffed by the voters. They were brutal times, just like the period with George W. Bush as well. Here's more from Cruz.
But you know what? Live free or die state took a look at Reagan and said, that guy believes what he's saying. He's not reading from talking points. He doesn't have a consultant who said, okay, go pretend you're for this. He's speaking from the heart. He means what he says. He tells the truth, and he's going to do exactly what he says. And the Granite State shocked this country by giving Reagan the victory, and it literally, the men and women of New Hampshire, changed the course of history of America and of the world. And
clearly, Cruz is attempting to claim the mantle of Reagan in New Hampshire. Now, here's the thing about it. If you look at what happened in Iowa, there was new voter registration in Iowa. There was a record Republican turnout in Iowa. And it was of the Republican base. It was conservatives who made up the new turnout. It was conservatives who created that record voter turnout and voter registration in New Hampshire. It's the Republican base that is growing. And nobody is going to talk to you about that today. Nobody is going to acknowledge that today. They're going to diminish Cruz's win as at the hands of a bunch of crazy Christians. And it's no surprise it's Iowa. I mean, look at who Iowa selected the last time, Santorum, and before him, Reverend Huckabee, or what have you. So they're going to do their best to diminish what Cruz did, because it just, it was the pro-lifers. But that's Iowa, and now New Hampshire. We're moving on into libertarian territory, they'll say. And that's a one-off. But it's not. Again, 3 of the top 4 finishers genuinely be said to be descendants of Ronaldus Magnus, Cruz, Rubio, and I'm going to throw Dr. Carson in there. Dr. Carson exemplifies the conservatism Reagan, while the Republican Party is doing its best still to convince everybody to get rid of this Reagan fetish, is the latest terminology. Having replaced the era of Reagan is over. But the Republican base is growing. It is a conservative base. It is growing because the establishment, insider elites of the Republican Party are not doing their job. That's why this growth is taking place. And it, for all of the sighs of relief that there no doubt were in the sanctity of the sectors of the establishment last night, there were as many gulps because Ted Cruz was the winner. Now, I have to say one more time. I do not like, and I've got a Reuters story. Do I find it? Yes. Marco Rubio emerges as champion of battered Republican establishment. Another Reuters story, headline, Republican Cruz calls Iowa win a victory for conservative grassroots. I do not like, speaking for myself, I don't like this idea that Marco Rubio is all of a sudden being labeled as an establishment candidate. I know that Rubio's got the baggage of that Gang of Eight bill. And I know that in many people's minds, he's got the baggage of wanting to grant the current number of illegal citizenship. I understand that. But I'm here to... Marco Rubio is no moderate Republican centrist. I'm not... I could sit here like anybody else could and try to make explanations for you for why he did the Gang of Eight. But I'm not even going to try to put words into his mouth. I don't want to be seen as making excuses. I'm just telling you, I don't see Marco Rubio as anything other than a legitimate, full-throated conservative. Nobody's pure, and nobody is ever free of making mistakes. I know Senator Rubio. It's like I was told last week. I know these people. I know that Senator Rubio is the Senate. In many ways, he agrees with Cruz, but he's worn out with the Senate. The Senate. I heard this from Alan West when he left the House. I've heard the incumbents, that's all they care about is getting reelected. You go there to really make a difference, and you run into brick wall after brick wall after brick wall. And I don't think, Rubio, I don't think he wants to stay there 30 years to break through the wall to get a committee chairmanship or whatever. I don't like this idea that we're all of a sudden going to make Rubio the establishment bad guy, as though Rubio is no different than the McCains and the Bob Doles and the Romneys and the others that have come along and been nominated by the establishment. He just isn't. He has not been talked out of his conservatism. He does not abandon it. He had the best acceptance speech of anybody last night, or acceptance. He had the best end of the evening speech of anybody. And even the media was dazzled by the fact that he did it without a teleprompter. They continue to be dazzled by that because, of course, Barack Hussein can't do anything without a teleprompter. I just don't want to. We had 3 genuine Reaganites triumph last night, and Rubio did better than a lot of people thought he was going to do. And to me, that is very important. It is crucially important for conservatism, for Reaganism, for the future of the Republican Party. And I'm not comfortable here sitting, watching somebody end up maybe being destroyed because of a characterization of being establishment. Yeah, the establishment may embrace him because they hate Cruz and they're not going to embrace Trump. And their real preferences can't get any traction. That would be Jeb and Kasich and Christie. So they've got to go with somebody. But I'm never going to be one that sees Marco Rubio as the establishment, as we talk about it every day here on this program. We've got a whole bunch of sound bites I have not gotten to yet, by the way, and I want to get to those because some of them are just great fodder to bounce off of, react to, plus your phone calls. Oh, yeah, I will gladly explain that. Yeah, I just got a question about Trump. I'll be happy to explain this. I want to go back to this tweet that Trump put out there. Here it is. Here's this tweet. I don't believe I've been given any credit by the voters for self-funding my campaign. The only one. I'll keep doing, but not worth it. I don't think he's saying funding his campaign isn't worth it. I don't think he's saying that his campaign isn't worth it. I don't think he's saying that. Don't misunderstand. I think that his point is all this talk about all the money in politics, and there's too much of it and too much lobbyists. So he goes out and self-funds. And nobody says anything about it. Nobody praises him for setting a new tone, a new direction in politics. So what he's saying is essentially that self-funding his campaign has not gotten the accolades he thought that it would get. But he's going to stay in the campaign. Don't misunderstand. He's not saying that that's not worth it. I get this totally. And I'll tell you something else. I'm going to go back to what we talked about earlier. In the Real Clear Politics rolling average, Trump has a 22. In some other places I've been corrected, I've been told it's 28-point lead. And I'm telling you that the drive-bys are hoping that it goes away. Republican establishment hoping that it's as meaningless as his 4-point lead was in Iowa. And what they can't wait for New Hampshire to come along and for Trump to lose that too and then be able. Now, here's the thing. That isn't going to happen. What happens when Trump wins New Hampshire, if he does? We're going to be back 1 week from today, well, tomorrow. We're going to be right where we are today. We're going to have a week of a bunch of speculation, a bunch of predictions, a bunch of mindless twaddle about what Iowa means as relates to New Hampshire. A bunch of people are going to claim Iowa told them exactly how New Hampshire is going to turn out, even nobody knows. And every week is going to be like this. Because the media cannot escape the horse race aspect of this. And if they think that, well, let's put it this way. Think forward. Hypothetical, Trump wins New Hampshire, as the polls say. What's the media going to do then? Is it over for Cruz? Cruz was a one-state wonder. Can you imagine where this is going to go? So you got to keep a level head about this stuff, folks. You really, really do. And try. It's hard not to. It's hard not to get caught up, because if you watch any media for any length of time, you're going to get caught up in the narratives and the templates and whatever else that they're spreading, which they do just to keep the hype up, crisis mentality, whatever, to hang on to viewers. But I've often said, if you just have confidence in what you think about things, you know as much as anybody else does in terms of what's reported. And if you'll have gut reactions to everything. I'm just telling you to trust them. Trust your instinct. Trust your gut reaction instead of getting all caught up in what ends up being, no matter where you go, the same analysis, the same predictions, the same explanations. It varies very little. Yeah, and I know I need to explain myself on Hillary a little bit more, but I'm not going to be able to get all that done yet today. There's still too much left here to go. We have a brief timeout coming up here with much more broadcast excellence on the other side, so hang in there and be tough. Try to squeeze as many calls in as I can. I've still got to get some sound bites, too, because they're delectable. Here's Carl in Columbus, Ohio. I'm glad you called, sir. Great to have you with us on the program today. Hello.
Hey, it's over for the Democrats. You can tell by the way they shout. It's real obvious. And Bill Clinton stares with that vacant old man stare behind Hillary. And to me, the Republicans, this is a great opportunity for the Republicans. And as a voter, personally, I like our governor from our great state of Ohio, John Kasich. The American people hopefully are going to make a personal choice opposed to what any media says. Wouldn't you agree?
What was that? American people will make a personal choice opposed to what? Oh, of course. Now, here's the thing. The media is always going to try to choose our candidate for us. The media is always going to try to get us to choose a moderate that is guaranteed to lose. Here's the thing. Here's the thing, Earl. The media, everybody knows the Republican Party's base is the majority of the party and that it's conservative. Therefore, everybody opposed to the Republican Party knows the way to beat them is to nominate some moderate centrist rhino type. And that's what the media is going to try to engineer. The Republican establishment is going to try to engineer. The Republican establishment is really curious. I would have to think if they've got any ability to remember history, recent history, they have to know the candidates they want lose. They have to know that. They keep beating their head against the wall. They keep wanting to nominate the same kind of people from the same geographic area of the country that are going to lose. It's almost like they prefer that to having somebody in their conservative wing win. But Bill Clinton standing behind Hillary last night, I saw that too. I mean, I saw it all. I saw Prep H. I saw Geritol. I saw Fixident. I saw Depends. I saw it all. I saw dripping saliva. I saw it all, folks. It was astounding. You didn't see it? Well, it was striking. It was striking. And in front of him, Hillary's running around screeching, like a bunch of seagulls that have been starved out near Alcatraz for a while. Stephanie in Cleveland, great to have you on the EIB network. Hello.
Yes, hello, Rush. We've been laughing together, you and I, for years,
Well, thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
Yes, we have, and you always make my day because you're the funniest person I know.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Well, good.
Naturally funny person.
Yes, you are. You're naturally funny. With the Depends thing you just did, you had me laughing on the other end.
I did. I saw it all standing there looking. I did.
Yes. Well, Rush, I know that earlier. Can I talk to you about a couple things? Well, one, actually.
Oh, sure. By all means. Have at it.
Yes, and I know that it was touched on a little bit by one of your former callers. But what really bothered me, and is bothering a lot of people, as a matter of fact, my daughter came in for lunch and said, oh, well, I liked Cruz, but I can't vote for him. And the reason is I think a lot of people are very incensed about what he did to Dr. Carson last evening. This is big, Rush.
You're talking about this dirty trick where somebody in the Cruz campaign announced that Carson had pulled out of the race like at 7:30 last night. And at CNN and media, somebody announced it. They actually took on the air. Ben Carson's dropped out of the race. And this affected people that were caucusing and who they were choosing. Now, of course, I'm aware of it. I've been trying to track it down. I haven't mentioned it because I don't really know yet if Cruz did it. I've got some people, admittedly Cruz supporters, telling me that there's more to this than meets the eye. I don't know what it is yet.
Well, I think that it really should be cleared up, and I think Dr. Carson addressed that this morning on Fox and Friends, and he spoke about it and said he would really like to get to the bottom of it because he feels that it did disrupt his voting, and he could have had higher numbers.
Well, Dr. Carson isn't 10%. I thought that number stunned me. In fact, I have to tell you something. I probably shouldn't admit this. In the early going, before it was known what was going to happen, what was nip and tuck there, and Cruz was, up by 100 votes, then 200 and 300, and Carson sitting there, whatever his number is, 10%. I thought this means Trump's going to win this, because I thought that meant that Carson was taking votes that Cruz would need to win. Turned out to be not true. It means the Republican base is even broader and bigger in Iowa than we knew.
Well, and at the same time, I think this is what worries and bothers people about Cruz. On one hand, he's saying, to God be the glory, as he's throwing Dr. Carson under the bus. Now, that is not the way we want a conservative or any candidate for president, to act. They would have expected that, I believe, probably out of Trump.
I think what happened was Dr. Carson said that he was going to go to Florida right after Iowa to get a change of clothes. And somebody said, it's being alleged it was in the Cruz campaign, somebody said, well, that means that's proof that he's dropping out of the race. If he's going to go home after this, what can you think? But that's where it all got started, and Network ran with that. So no, it's serious problem. You'd call it a dirty trick, right?
Rush, I would. I think it goes against what he's what his evangelical talk is out there, and I think that's something that really doesn't fit with that.
Well, that
is he brother Jimmy Swaggart?
I know if you're going to go that route, you are going to you're hemming yourself in on behavioral requirements. Now, Jimmy Swaggart, I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't go that. Come on, now we got some. I remember when Jimmy Swaggart came clean. I'm sorry. I remember I watched it. I watched him come clean, and the tears were streaming down both eyes. And he had the microphone in his hand, or maybe it was the podium, I don't know. And he was crying, really just river of tears. And face was contorted in great pain. And he was looking heavenward. And had his 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 people in his audience there in his church. I have sinned before you. I have sinned before you. I'm watching this. I don't think that's what we had going on in Iowa last night. Safe to say. But I appreciate, Stephanie, the call. Really, I do appreciate all the kind things you said. I never do take it for granted. I really do appreciate it. I'm just up against it on time. I have to. Cruz, I've just been informed by the official program observer that Cruz has apologized to Carson for the incident. Is there an acceptance of blame in this? Is that? Okay. I see. So Senator Cruz is explaining in his apology to Dr. Carson it was a misunderstanding. Okay. We'll get to the bottom of this and in terms of what's known and be back after this. Don't go away. Okay. Here we go. Dr. Carson, grab soundbite number 18. Dr. Carson was on Fox and Friends this morning. Steve Ducey said, you're accusing Senator Cruz of dirty tricks last night. What are we talking about?
At many of the precincts, information was disseminated that I was suspending my campaign, that I had dropped out, and anybody who was planning to vote for me was wasting their vote, and therefore they should reconsider. Some of those speakers said that, but we also have tweets and written correspondence to the same. If Ted Cruz doesn't know about this, then he clearly needs to very quickly get rid of some people in his organization. And if he does know about it, isn't this the exact kind of thing that the American people are tired of?
Okay, so the Cruz campaign has responded. Said in a statement today that his campaign staff saw a CNN report that Carson was dropping out, although CNN claims that they did not characterize Carson's actions that way. Now, Cruz's statement, shared with CNN, says, last night when our political team saw the CNN post saying that Dr. Carson was not carrying on to New Hampshire and South Carolina, our campaign updated grassroots leaders just as we would with any breaking news story. That's fair game. What the team then should have done was send around the follow-up statement from the Carson campaign, clarifying that he was indeed staying in the race when that came out. CNN had reported that Carson planned to go home to Florida after the Iowa caucuses rather than flying straight to New Hampshire or South Carolina. Carson joking, I need to go get some new clothes. And he lives not far from here, just across the bridge over in West Palm Beach, so he's going to go get some clothes and then head back up to New Hampshire. And that was then taken advantage of to, hey, Carson's leaving. Carson's leaving the race. 20 minutes after the caucuses began in Iowa, Representative Steve King, according to CNN, who is the Cruz campaign national co-chair, retweeted CNN's Chris Moody about Carson's break from the campaign trail before the New Hampshire primary. King's tweet said, Carson looks like he's out. Iowans need to know before they vote. Most will go to Cruz, I hope. In another tweet, the congressman said that Carson's next steps were equivalent of suspending. So that's Cruz is saying it's a misunderstanding. CNN saying, no, it's not. CNN saying that they clearly took advantage of a logistic deviation or plan. that Carson had tended to go to Florida. Hey, he's leaving. Voters here need to know that he's leaving. This helps to illustrate the when I saw the tight race, when I saw Cruz and Trump were nip and tuck. I mean, really, early in the night, I said, Ben Carson said with 10%. I said those are normally votes that Cruz would get. And the Cruz campaign obviously thought so, too. So, anyway, they're working on straightening this out. But it looks like some people are going to have a tough time getting past the dirty tricks angle of this. Some people want to see it as dirty tricks. No matter what explanation they're going to get, it's going to be dirty tricks. And then Carson saying, isn't this the kind of stuff we're running against here, all of us? It's not Valentine's Day without roses. Maybe there ought to be some exchanges of roses here. Hey, look, as a way out of this, Senator Cruz could simply offer Dr. Carson a delegate or two. It's part of his apology. Maybe three max, one or two delegates ought to cover it.